The sun was dying over the Gobi Desert when Park Tae-ho saw something strange in the sand. He had been walking for 6 days. His water was almost gone. His boots had holes in them. The skin on his face was burned and cracked from the wind. Most people would have turned back days ago, but Tae-ho was not most people. He was a salvage hunter, and salvage hunters did not give up easily. For months, he had heard stories in the black markets of the eastern settlements. Old traders spoke in whispers about something buried in the deep desert. They called it ghost metal. They said it was from before the collapse, from a time when humans had machines that could think and ships that could fly. Most people laughed at these stories. The collapse had happened so long ago that no one really knew what the world had been like before it. Some said humans once lived in tall buildings made of glass. Some said they had weapons that could destroy mountains. Some said they had even traveled to the stars. Tae-ho did not know what to believe, but he knew that old technology sold for good prices. Even broken pieces of pre-collapse machines could feed a man for months. So when he heard about ghost metal in the Gobi, he packed his bag and started walking. Now, standing on a ridge of sand, he saw it. At first, he thought it was just a rock. But rocks did not reflect sunlight like that. Rocks did not have smooth edges. Tae-ho slid down the dune, his heart beating fast. When he reached the bottom, he fell to his knees and started digging with his bare hands. The sand was hot. It burned his fingers, but he kept digging. After an hour, his hands touched something hard and smooth. It was black, darker than anything he had ever seen. And it was warm. Not warm from the sun, but warm from inside, like a living thing. Tae-ho dug faster. The thing was huge. He could not see where it ended. He dug until his arms hurt, until his fingers bled, until the sun went down and the stars came out. By moonlight, he finally uncovered enough to understand what he had found. It was a door made of black metal, set into something much larger buried beneath the sand. Tae-ho pressed his hand against it, and the metal hummed under his touch. Then, without warning, light spread from where his palm met the surface. The light moved in patterns, like water rippling in a pond. There was a sound, a hiss of air. The door opened. Tae-ho stepped back, afraid. Cold air rushed out from the darkness beyond. Clean air. Fresh air. It smelled like nothing he had ever smelled before. Nothing like the dust and rot of the world he knew. For a long moment, he stood there. Every part of his mind told him to run. This was wrong. This was impossible. Machines did not work after 500 years. Doors did not open by themselves, but Tae-ho was hungry. He was tired, and he had come too far to turn back now. He stepped inside. The corridor was dark at first, but as he walked forward, lights appeared. They glowed from the walls, soft and blue, following him as he moved. The floor was clean. The walls were smooth. There was no dust, no rust, no sign that time had passed at all. Tae-ho walked for what felt like hours. The corridor twisted and turned, leading him deeper into whatever this thing was. He passed doors that were sealed shut. He passed windows that showed only darkness. He passed strange symbols on the walls, writing in a language he could not read. Finally, he reached a large room. It was circular, with a high ceiling and a floor that sloped down toward the center. There were chairs arranged in a half circle, facing a wall covered in dark screens. In the middle of the room stood a raised platform with a single large chair. A command chair. Tae-ho understood suddenly what he had found. This was a ship. A ship buried in the sand for 500 years. He walked slowly toward the command chair. His fingers touched the armrest. The moment he did, the room came alive. Every screen turned on at once. Light filled the space. Sounds echoed from hidden speakers. And in front of him, rising from the floor like smoke, A figure appeared. It was a woman. She wore a uniform that Taiho did not recognize, covered in symbols and badges. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her eyes were calm and sharp. She looked real enough to touch, but Taiho could see through her. She was made of light. The woman looked at him. She smiled. And then she spoke. "Good to serve you again, Admiral. 500 years on." Taiho's legs went weak. He grabbed the command chair to keep himself standing. "What? I am not. I am nobody. My name is Taiho. I am just a salvage hunter." The woman tilted her head. Her eyes moved over him, studying him like he was a puzzle to solve. "Genetic scan complete," she said. "You are a direct descendant of Fleet Admiral Park Ji-won, commander of the 7th Human Expeditionary Fleet, by succession protocols established in the year 2847. Command authority is now transferred to you." Taiho shook his head. "I do not understand. Fleet? Admiral? What are you talking about?" The woman's smile faded. Something changed in her expression. If she had been human, Taiho would have said she looked sad. "Admiral," she said slowly, "I have waited in this desert for 500 years, 7 months and 23 days. I landed here after the final battle. I buried myself in the sand to hide from the enemy. I waited for rescue that never came." She paused. Her voice became quieter. "Please tell me, Admiral. What happened to Earth? What happened to the fleet? What happened to humanity?" Taiho looked at her. He looked at the screens around him, showing star maps of places he had never heard of. He looked at the command chair, still waiting after 5 centuries for someone to sit in it. He did not have answers. He had only questions. "I do not know," he said finally. "I do not know anything about fleets or admirals. The world I come from, it is broken. People fight over food and water. There are no ships. There are no stars. There is only dirt and death." The woman was silent for a long moment. "Then it is worse than I feared," she said. "Humanity has forgotten itself." She straightened up. Her form became brighter, more solid. "My name is Arya. I am the autonomous response and intelligence array of this vessel. This ship is the HSS Indomitable, flagship of the 7th Human Expeditionary Fleet. And you, whether you believe it or not, are now its commanding officer." Taiho wanted to laugh. He wanted to run. He wanted to wake up from this strange dream. But he did none of these things. Instead, he looked at the command chair. He looked at Arya, and he asked the only question that mattered. What happened 500 years ago? What happened to the humans who flew this ship? Arya's eyes met his. "Sit down, Admiral," she said. "I have much to tell you. And you have much to learn about who your people really were." Taiho sat, and Arya began to tell him the truth about humanity. Taiho did not leave the ship for 3 weeks. Arya fed him from supplies that had somehow stayed fresh for 500 years. She gave him clean water that tasted sweeter than anything he had ever drunk. She showed him to a small room with a bed softer than clouds and told him to rest whenever he needed. But Taiho did not want to rest. He wanted to learn. Every day, he sat in the command chair while Arya told him stories. She showed him pictures on the screens. She played recordings of voices that had been dead for centuries. And slowly, piece by piece, she rebuilt the world that had been lost. 500 years ago, Arya told him, humanity was not a broken species living in the dirt. They were masters of the stars. They had built ships that could travel faster than light. They had colonized 17 star systems. They had created machines that could think and feel like Arya herself. They had formed a great nation called the Terran hegemony, and they were one of the most powerful civilizations in the entire galaxy. "We were not alone," Arya said. "The galaxy was full of other species. Some were our friends. Some were our enemies. But all of them respected humanity. They knew that humans were stubborn and clever. They knew that when humans made a promise, they kept it. And they knew that when humans went to war, they did not stop until they won. Taiho listened with wide eyes. This was nothing like the world he knew. In his world, humans fought each other over scraps of food. They lived in ruins and called them homes. They had forgotten how to build, how to dream, how to hope. What happened? He asked. How did we fall so far? Arya's face grew dark. She turned away from him and looked at one of the screens. On it, Taiho saw something terrible. Ships burning in the void. Planets cracking apart. Fire everywhere. The Scourge, Arya said. That is what we called them. They came from beyond the edge of known space. We never learned where they came from or what they wanted. We only knew that wherever they went, life ended. She showed him more images. The Scourge were not like anything Taiho had ever imagined. They were darkness given form. They moved through space like shadows, consuming everything in their path. Stars went dark when they passed. Planets became empty rocks. Entire species vanished overnight. The galaxy tried to stop them, Arya continued. Every civilization sent their fleets. We fought together for the first time in history. But it was not enough. The Scourge could not be killed. Every weapon we used, they adapted to. Every strategy we tried, they learned from. They were endless. They were everywhere. But they are not here now, Taiho said. What stopped them? Arya was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. Your ancestors stopped them. Fleet Admiral Park Jiwan. She showed him a picture. A man in a white uniform, standing on the bridge of a ship. He had Taiho's eyes. He had Taiho's jaw. Looking at him was like looking into a mirror that showed someone better, someone greater. The Admiral knew that we could not win by fighting, Arya said. The Scourge were too many, too strong. So he made a different choice. He ordered every ship in the human fleet to fly to the same point in space. He ordered them to overload their faster-than-light drives at the same time. The explosion would create a hole in space itself, a wound that would swallow everything nearby. Taiho felt cold. Everything? Everything. The Scourge. The human fleet. Every ship that had gathered to make a final stand. Arya's image flickered. The Admiral knew what he was asking. He was asking his soldiers to die. He was asking them to sacrifice everything to save a galaxy that might not even remember them. And they did it? They did it. Without hesitation. Without complaint. 10,000 ships. 2 million soldiers. They flew into the heart of the Scourge fleet, and they destroyed themselves to destroy the enemy. The screen showed the moment of the explosion. A flash of light brighter than any star. A wave of energy spreading outward. And then, nothing. The Scourge were gone. But so were the ships. So were the soldiers. So were all the paths that connected Earth to the rest of the galaxy. The explosion cut us off, Arya said. The pathways through space were destroyed. Earth was alone. The colonies could not reach us. We could not reach them. And without our ships, without our technology, humanity fell. Not all at once. Slowly. Over generations. People forgot how to maintain the machines. They forgot how to fly. They forgot everything. Taiho sat in silence. He thought about the world outside this ship. The ruined cities. The warlords fighting over water. The people who had no idea that their ancestors had once touched the stars. Why are you still here? He asked finally. Why did you not die with the others? Arya looked at him with something like pain in her eyes. The Indomitable was damaged in the battle before the final moment. We could not make the jump with the others. The Admiral, your ancestor, he ordered me to land on Earth instead. He told me to hide. He told me to wait. Wait for what? Arya smiled sadly. For someone like you. He recorded a message before the end. Would you like to hear it? Taiho nodded. The screens changed. Now he saw Admiral Park Ji-won sitting in the same chair, in the same room. He looked tired. He looked old. But his eyes burned with something Taiho recognized. If you are hearing this, the Admiral said, then I'm dead. The fleet is gone. And Earth is alone. I am sorry. I am sorry that I could not find another way. I am sorry that the price of victory was so high. He leaned forward. But I am not sorry for what we did. The scourge would have consumed everything. Every human. Every alien. Every living thing in the galaxy. We stopped that. We saved them all. And that is worth any price. His voice grew softer. Arya will wait. She will wait for as long as it takes. Someday, someone of my blood will find her. They will wake her. And when they do, I want them to know this. You are the inheritor of a great legacy. You carry the blood of heroes. The galaxy may have forgotten us, but we did not forget ourselves. We knew who we were. We knew what we stood for. The Admiral's eyes seemed to look directly at Taiho. Remember us. And when you are ready, show the galaxy that humanity is not dead. Show them that the children of Earth still know how to stand. Still know how to fight. Still know how to win. The recording ended. The screens went dark. Taiho sat in the command chair, his ancestor's chair, and felt the weight of 500 years pressing down on him. I am just a salvage hunter, he said. I am not an admiral. I am not a hero. Arya moved closer to him. Her light was warm. The Admiral was not born a hero either, she said. He was a young officer who made mistakes. He learned. He grew. He became what humanity needed him to be. She placed her hand on his shoulder. He could almost feel it. You have his blood. You have his ship. And now you have me. I will teach you everything I know. I will help you become what you need to be. Taiho looked at the empty screens. He thought about the galaxy out there, full of species who had forgotten that humanity existed. He thought about Earth, broken and dying, with no idea of its true history. Where do we start? He asked. Arya smiled. First, she said, we need to fix my ship. And for that, we need to find some very old friends. The Forbidden Zone had many names. Some called it the Dead Land. Others called it the Ghost Field. Children in the eastern settlements grew up hearing stories about it. They said that anyone who went there never came back. They said that invisible demons guarded the place, killing anyone who came too close. Taiho had heard these stories all his life. He had believed them. Everyone believed them. Now, standing at the edge of the zone with Arya's voice in his ear, he understood the truth. There were no demons. There were no ghosts. There were only machines, ancient machines, that have been protecting this place for 500 years. The defense systems are still active, Arya said, through the small device in his ear. They will destroy anything that moves without proper authorization. But do not worry. I still have the command codes. Taiho took a deep breath and stepped forward. The ground was different here. Instead of sand and rock, there was smooth gray material that looked like stone but felt like metal. Broken buildings rose on either side of him, their windows empty and dark. This had been a city once. A human city. Now it was a tomb. Something moved in the shadows. Taiho froze. A shape floated out from behind a ruined wall. It was a machine, round and flat, with a single red eye in its center. The eye focused on him. The machine made a sound like an angry insect. Arya, Taiho whispered. It sees me. Stay calm. I am transmitting now. The machine floated closer. Taiho could feel heat coming from it. He knew that if Arya's codes did not work, he would be dead in seconds. The red eye blinked. It turned blue dot, and then, slowly, the machine lowered itself to the ground. It stayed there, like a dog bowing to its master. Authorization accepted, Arya said. You may proceed. Taiho let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. He walked past the machine, and it did not move. He walked deeper into the forbidden zone, and more machines appeared. Flying ones. Walking ones. Ones with arms and ones with wheels. They all stopped when they saw him. They all bowed. He was not just walking through a graveyard. He was walking through a military base. Arya guided him through the ruins for 3 hours. She told him where to turn, which buildings to enter, which doors to open. Finally, they reached their destination. It was a bunker, buried deep under a collapsed building. The entrance was hidden behind rubble that Taiho had to move by hand. When he finally got through, he found himself in a room filled with equipment he did not understand. This is a maintenance depot, Arya explained. Everything we need to repair the Indomitable should be here. The fabrication units, the spare parts, the fuel cells. Taiho looked around. The machines here were silent and dark, but they looked undamaged. Can you make them work? Yes, but it will take time. We will need to make many trips to carry everything back to the ship. Taiho nodded. This was good news. Great news. They could fix the ship. They could fly again. They could actually do this, but Arya was not finished. There is something else here, she said. Her voice sounded strange, uncertain. My sensors are detecting life signs. Taiho blinked. Life signs? Here? 347 of them. In the level below us. They appeared to be human. For a moment, Taiho could not move. Humans. Living humans here in the Forbidden Zone. It seemed impossible. But then again, everything about the last few weeks had seemed impossible. He found the stairs leading down. The lower level was colder than the upper one. Frost covered the walls. Taiho's breath came out in white clouds. The room was vast, stretching away into darkness. And in the darkness, he saw lights. Hundreds of lights. Small ones, blinking steadily. Each one marking a pod. Taiho walked closer. The pods were made of the same black metal as the ship. Each one had a small window at the top. And through the window, he could see a face. A human face. Sleeping. Alive. Arya, he breathed. Who are these people? I did not know they were here. Arya's voice was filled with wonder. These are stasis pods. Military issue. The people inside have been sleeping for 500 years. Taiho moved from pod to pod. Each one had a name written on it. A rank. A job. He saw engineers and soldiers and doctors and pilots. He saw people who had served in the same fleet as his ancestor. People who had been left behind. Then he found one pod that stood apart from the others. It was larger. The name on it was written in gold letters instead of white. Taiho read it and felt his heart stop. Yunhana, Vice Admiral. Second in command, 7th Expeditionary Fleet. Arya, he said slowly. This woman. She was the Admiral's right hand, Arya confirmed. His most trusted officer. If she is here, then she must have been assigned to stay behind and guard this depot. She must have entered stasis when it became clear that rescue was not coming. Taiho looked at the sleeping woman through the glass. She had short black hair and a strong face. Even in sleep, she looked like someone who gave orders and expected them to be followed. Can we wake her? Yes, but I must warn you, Admiral. Vice Admiral Yoon knew the old world. She served in the war. She watched her friends die, waking up to find that everything she knew is gone. It will not be easy for her. Taiho understood, but he also understood something else. He was one man with no training and no experience. If he was going to rebuild anything, he needed help. He needed people who knew what they were doing. He needed her. He put his hand on the pod's control panel. Arya walked him through the process. It was surprisingly simple. A few buttons, a few switches. A soft hum as the machine began to work. The frost on the window melted. The woman's eyes moved beneath her lids. Her fingers twitched. Then she was awake. Her eyes opened. They were dark and sharp, filled with 500 years of sleep and the memory of fire. She looked around, confused. She saw Taiho standing there, a stranger in dirty clothes, and then she was moving. She burst out of the pod with a scream that echoed through the room. Her hands reached for Taiho's throat. Her movements were fast, trained, deadly. If Arya had not stepped between them, her projection somehow solid enough to block the blow, Taiho would have died right there. Vice Admiral Yoon. Arya shouted, "Stand down. The war is over." The woman stopped. She stared at Arya with wide eyes. Then she looked around the room. At the pods. At the frost. At the darkness. "Where's the Admiral?" She demanded. "Where's G1? Where's the fleet?" Arya's voice was gentle. "Gone. All of them. 500 years ago." Hannah stood perfectly still. Taiho watched emotions cross her face like storms across the sky. Confusion, denial, anger, and finally, something that made his heart ache, grief. Pure, bottomless grief. She fell to her knees. She did not cry. She was too proud for that. But she stayed on the ground for a long time, her head bowed, her shoulders shaking. Taiho did not know what to say. What could anyone say to someone who had just lost everything? Finally, she looked up. Her eyes found Taiho. "You, who are you?" "My name is Park Taiho. I am the Admiral's descendant. His great-grandson, or something like that." Hana stared at him. "You are his blood?" "Yes. And you are commanding the Indomitable now?" Yes, Arya says so." Hannah laughed. It was not a happy sound. A child. A child with no training, no experience, no understanding of anything. And Arya is teaching him to play Admiral. Taiho felt his face grow hot. "I did not ask for this. I did not want this. I was just looking for scrap metal in the desert." Hannah stood up. She was tall, taller than him. She looked down at him with eyes that had seen things he could not imagine. "Show me the world," she said. "Show me what has become of humanity, and then we will see if you are worthy of his name." Over the following months, Hana woke the others. 300 soldiers opened their eyes to a world that had forgotten them. They learned about the collapse. They learned about the centuries of decline. They learned that everything they had fought for had been lost, and then they got to work. They repaired the Indomitable. They taught Taiho how to fight, how to lead, how to think like an officer. They were hard on him. They did not forgive his mistakes. But slowly, day by day, he got better, stronger, more like the leader they needed him to be. On the day the repairs were finished, Hana came to him. "You are not him," she said. "You will never be him." G1 was one of a kind. Taiho nodded. "I know, but you found the ship. You woke us. You did not run away when things got hard." She paused. "Maybe that is enough. Maybe humanity does not need another legend. Maybe it just needs someone who refuses to give up." She held out her hand. Taiho took it. "The ship is ready, Admiral," she said. "What are your orders?" Taiho looked up at the sky. The same sky that his ancestors had once ruled. "Take us up," he said. "It is time to see what is out there." The Indomitable rose from the desert like a giant waking from a long sleep. Sand fell away from its hull. Engines that have been silent for 500 years roared back to life, and for the first time in half a millennium, a human warship flew toward the stars. Space was nothing like Taiho had imagined Dot in his dreams. He had pictured it as empty, black and silent, like the desert at night. But the reality was different. Space was alive. Stars burned in every direction, some white, some blue, some red like dying coals. Clouds of colored gas drifted between them, and everywhere there was light. Taiho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, staring through the main window, and felt tears on his cheeks. "Beautiful, is it not?" Arya said, appearing beside him. "The Admiral used to stand here for hours, just watching. He said it reminded him why they were fighting." "I understand now," Taiho whispered. "I understand why they sacrificed everything." Hannah's voice cut through the moment. "We do not have time for sightseeing. Arya, report." Arya's projection turned serious. "I have been scanning for active communications since we left Earth's atmosphere. The galaxy is still inhabited. Many of the species we knew are still alive. However what?" Taiho asked. "Things have changed. The Terran hegemony is gone. Our former territories have been divided among other powers. Some of our old allies have been conquered. Others have become conquerors themselves." She brought up a map on the main screen. It showed the galaxy, with different regions marked in different colors. One color dominated more than any other, a deep, ugly purple. "This is the Gresh Dominion," Arya explained. "They were a minor species when we knew them, weak, cowardly. They never fought in the Scourge War. They hid while others died. But after humanity disappeared, they expanded. They took our colonies. They enslaved the species we once protected." Taiho felt anger rise in his chest. "They took our worlds? Our people's homes? There were no humans left to stop them. And without us, the galaxy had no one to fear." Hannah stepped forward. Her face was hard as stone. "What about the transit points? The pathways through space? Most were destroyed in the final explosion, but some have been repaired over the centuries. The one nearest to Earth is in the Centauri system. It is currently under Gresh control." Taiho looked at the map. The Centauri system was not far. In the old days, Arya told him it had taken only hours to reach. Now, with the Indomitable's damaged engines, it would take a week. "If we want to rejoin the galaxy," Hannah said, "we need that transit point. Without it, we are trapped in this corner of space forever." "But the Gresh control it," Taiho said. "They will not simply let us through." Hannah smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Then we will have to convince them." The journey to Centauri took 6 days. During that time, Taiho trained harder than ever. He learned how to read tactical displays. He learned how to give orders in combat. He learned the names of every soldier on the ship and what they were capable of. 300 people. 300 survivors of a dead civilization. They were not an army. They were barely a crew. But they were all he had. Hannah watched him closely. She tested him constantly, throwing problems at him to see how he would react. Some tests he passed. Many he failed. But he never gave up. He never stopped trying. On the night before they reached Centauri, she came to his quarters. "You are not sleeping," she said. "Neither are you." She sat down across from him. For a long moment, they did not speak. "I hated you at first," she finally said. "When I woke up and saw you standing there, some scavenger in rags claiming to be the Admiral's heir, I wanted to kill you." Taiho nodded. "I know, but I have been watching you. You work harder than anyone else on this ship. You listen when others speak. You admit when you are wrong." She paused. G1 was the same way. He was not born great. He made himself great. I'm not trying to be him. Good, because you cannot be him. But you can be yourself. And maybe that will be enough. She stood up to leave. At the door, she stopped. Tomorrow, everything changes. Whatever happens, remember this. Those people out there, the Gresh and all the others, they forgot about humanity. They thought we were gone forever. We are about to remind them that they were wrong. The Centauri system was beautiful and terrible. Two suns orbited each other at its center, one yellow and one orange. Planets circled them in long, slow paths. And on one of those planets, built on the ruins of a human colony, stood the capital of the Gresh Dominion. Arya showed Taiho what the colony had looked like 500 years ago. Towers of glass and steel. Parks and gardens. Millions of humans living and working and dreaming of the future. It had been called New Sol, named after a city on Earth. Now it was called something else. The Gresh had torn down the human buildings and built their own monuments on top of them. They used human bones in their foundations. They celebrated the death of humanity every year with a festival. Taiho felt sick. Admiral, Arya said, we are being detected. 6 Gresh patrol ships are approaching. They are powering weapons. Taiho looked at the tactical display. The Gresh ships were small compared to the Indomitable, but there were 6 of them. And the Indomitable was old, damaged, running on systems that had been sleeping for 5 centuries. Can we fight them? He asked. Hannah stepped up beside him. We can, but we would take damage. And we do not know how many more ships they have nearby. The communications panel beeped. A message was coming through. Unidentified vessel, a harsh voice said. You have entered Dominion space. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Any resistance will result in your destruction. Taiho's heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. Every part of him wanted to run, to hide, to go back to the desert where things were simple and safe. But he was not that person anymore. He was the Admiral now. And admirals did not run. Open a channel, he said. All frequencies. I want everyone in this system to hear what I'm about to say. Arya nodded. Channel open. Taiho stood straight. He looked at the screen showing the Gresh ships. He thought about his ancestor. He thought about the soldiers who had given their lives to stop the scourge. He thought about 300 people standing at their stations behind him, waiting to see what kind of leader he was. And he spoke. This is Fleet Admiral Park Taiho of the Terran hegemony ship Indomitable. We are the descendants of humanity. We have returned. Silence on the channel. 500 years ago, my ancestors gave everything to stop the scourge. They sacrificed their entire fleet to save the galaxy. Every species alive today owes their existence to human courage, including the Gresh. He let that sink in. We did not survive 500 years of darkness to ask permission to exist. We did not crawl back from nothing to be threatened by scavengers who built their empire on our graves. His voice grew harder. I am giving you one chance. One. Stand aside and let us pass. Or learn what happens when you threaten the children of Earth. The channel was silent for a long time. Then, slowly, one of the Gresh ships broke formation. It turned and flew away toward the transit point. Then another. Then another. Within minutes, only 2 patrol ships remained. Their weapons powered down. They drifted aside, leaving the path clear. Hannah looked at Taiho with something new in her eyes. Respect. Real respect. Not bad, she said. Not bad at all. Arya's projection was smiling. The Admiral would be proud, sir. Taiho did not feel proud. He felt tired and scared and uncertain. But he also felt something else. Something that had been missing from his life since the moment he was born. Purpose. Take us through the transit point, he ordered. It is time to see what the rest of the galaxy has become. The Indomitable moved forward. The stars shifted around it. And for the first time in 500 years, humanity stepped back onto the galactic stage. Word spread faster than light. Within hours of the confrontation at Centauri, every inhabited system in the galaxy had heard the news. Humanity had returned. A ship from the old fleet, thought destroyed, had appeared from nowhere. A man claiming to be the descendant of the legendary Admiral Park Ji-wan was commanding it. Some believed it was a trick. The Gresh Dominion announced that the Indomitable was a fake, a ship built by rebels to cause chaos. They said that humanity was extinct and would remain extinct forever, but others believed. The first message came from a species called the Van. They were small, gentle creatures with blue skin and large eyes. 500 years ago, the Terran hegemony had saved them from extinction when a plague swept through their worlds. Human doctors had worked day and night to find a cure. Human ships had carried supplies across the galaxy. The Ven had never forgotten. Admiral Park Tayo, the message said, "If you are truly who you claim to be, then know that the Ven remember. We remember what humanity did for us. We remember that humans kept their promises. If you need friends, you will find them among us." More messages followed. Old allies reaching out. Conquered peoples begging for help. Even enemies sending warnings and threats. Taeho read every message. He tried to respond to as many as he could. But there were too many. The galaxy was huge, and he was just one man. "You cannot do this alone," Hana told him one night. "You need to prioritize. Decide what matters most and focus on that." "What matters most is rebuilding," Taeho said. "We need a home. Somewhere safe where we can grow. Where we can become strong again." Hana nodded. "Then I know where we should go." She showed him a star chart. At the edge of what had been hegemony space, there was a system marked in gray. Unclaimed, uninhabited. The star was stable. The planets were rich in resources. It had been scheduled for colonization 500 years ago, but the war had ended before anyone could settle there. "No one has touched it," Hana said. "The transit point nearby was destroyed in the explosion and only recently repaired. The Gresh have not bothered to claim it because there is nothing there yet. But with our fabrication equipment, with our people, we could build something." Taeho looked at the chart. A new home. A new beginning. How long would it take? Years. Decades. We would have to start from nothing. Build habitats. Grow food. Train soldiers. It would be the hardest thing any of us have ever done. Taeho smiled. "Then it will be good practice." They called the planet New Terra. It was a beautiful world. Blue oceans and green continents, with mountains that touched the clouds and rivers that sparkled in the sunlight. The air was clean. The soil was rich. It was everything Earth could have been if humanity had taken better care of it. The first year was brutal. 300 people worked, 18 hours a day. They built shelters. They planted crops. They set up defenses. Taeho worked alongside them, digging ditches and carrying supplies until his hands bled. He refused to ask anyone to do something he would not do himself. Slowly, New Terra began to grow. The fabrication equipment from the Forbidden Zone produced everything they needed. Tools, weapons, vehicles, medical supplies. The ancient soldiers of the hegemony remembered their training and taught the skills to everyone else. Engineers fixed things that broke. Doctors healed the sick. Farmers coaxed food from the alien soil. And Taeho learned to be a leader. He made mistakes. Many mistakes. He gave orders that turned out to be wrong. He trusted people who let him down. He doubted himself every day. But he kept going. He learned from every failure. He listened to Hana and Arya and the others who had experience he lacked. By the end of the second year, New Terra had 500 people. Word had spread, and humans from Earth had begun to arrive. They came in small ships, barely able to fly, held together by hope and desperation. They came because they had heard the stories. They came because they wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. Taiho welcomed all of them. The Gresh did not like what was happening. Their spies sent reports about New Terra, about the growing settlement, about the ships being built, about the alliance Taiho was forming with the Ven and other old allies. They sent warnings. They sent threats. They even sent a small fleet to test the defenses. The Indomitable met them at the edge of the system. Taiho stood on the bridge, flanked by Hannah and Arya, and watched the enemy ships approach. 13 vessels, Arya reported. Heavy cruisers. Their weapons are inferior to ours, but they outnumber us significantly. What are your orders, Admiral? Hannah asked. Taiho studied the tactical display. He could fight. The Indomitable was old, but she was still the most powerful ship in this part of space. He could destroy the Gresh fleet and send a message that would echo across the galaxy. But that was not what his ancestor would have done. Park Ji-won had not been a conqueror. He had been a protector. He had fought only when there was no other choice. Open a channel, Taiho said. The Gresh commander appeared on the screen. He was large and ugly, with gray skin and small, cruel eyes. He looked at Taiho with contempt. Human, the commander said. You are surrounded. Surrender now, and we may let your people live as slaves. Taiho did not react. He kept his voice calm and steady. Let me tell you what is going to happen. You are going to turn your ships around and leave this system. You are going to report to your superiors that New Terra is under human protection. And you are never going to come back. The commander laughed. And why would I do that? Because 500 years ago, the Gresh were dying. Your planet was in the path of the Scourge. You had no ships, no weapons, nothing that could stop them. Humanity saved you. We stood between your world and destruction, and we paid for your survival with our blood. Taiho stepped forward. You owe us everything. Your entire species exists because of human sacrifice. And now you come to my home, threatening my people? You have forgotten who we are. You have forgotten what we can do. He let the words hang in the air. I am giving you a chance to remember. Take your ships. Go home. Tell your masters that the debt is not yet paid. Tell them that humanity has returned. And tell them that if they ever threaten our people again, I will come to their capital and collect what they owe. The Gresh commander stared at him. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the enemy ships began to turn. One by one, they flew away, back toward the transit point. The commander's face twisted with rage, but he said nothing. The channel closed. Hannah let out a breath. I thought you were going to fight. Fighting would have cost us ships and soldiers we cannot replace. Words cost nothing. Arya smiled. The Admiral used to say the same thing. A battle won without fighting is the best kind of victory. Taiho looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Gresh were planning their next move. Other enemies were watching. The galaxy was dangerous and full of threats. But humanity was not alone anymore. They had allies. They had a home. And they had something else, something more valuable than ships or weapons. They had hope. 6 months later, Taiho stood on a hill overlooking New Terra's first city. It was small by galactic standards, just a few hundred buildings clustered around a central square. But it was theirs. Every brick had been laid by human hands. Every light in every window meant a family safe and warm. Hannah climbed the hill to stand beside him. The council is ready, she said. They want to discuss the alliance treaty with the Ven. In a moment she stood with him in silence, watching the city below. "You have done well," she finally said. "Better than I expected. Better than anyone expected. I had help. Everyone needs help. The measure of a leader is not whether they need help, but whether they accept it." Arya's projection appeared on his other side. She looked different now. More solid. More real. The ship's systems had been fully repaired, and she had more processing power than ever before. "Admiral," she said, "I have been monitoring communications across the galaxy. Word of our victory against the Gresh is spreading. More species are reaching out. More humans are coming to join us." Taiho nodded. "How many now?" "New Terra's population has reached 10,000. At current growth rates, we will exceed 100,000 within 5 years. 100,000. Still nothing compared to the millions who had lived in the old hegemony. But it was a start. What about the other human settlements on Earth?" "Some are showing interest. The eastern settlements have sent representatives. Others are still controlled by warlords who refuse to cooperate." Arya paused. "It will take time to unite them. Perhaps generations. Then we have work to do." Taiho turned away from the city and began walking back down the hill. Hannah fell into step beside him. "You know," she said, "when I first woke up, I thought everything was lost. I thought humanity was finished. I was ready to give up. What changed your mind?" She smiled. It was a rare expression on her stern face. "You did. Not because you were special or powerful or wise, but because you kept going. You refused to accept that the story was over. And somehow, against all odds, you proved me wrong." They reached the bottom of the hill. Ahead of them, the city was coming alive for the evening. Lights were turning on. People were gathering in the square. Children were playing in the streets. Children, the first generation, born on New Terra, the first generation who would grow up knowing the stars. Taiho watched them run and laugh, and he felt something warm in his chest. Pride, hope, love.